Today on the Investor's Guide to Joy, we're going to be talking with Devin specifically about AI in a six-figure business. I intentionally separated 6 and 7 figures, 7-figure plus businesses into 2 different episodes because I've ultimately realized there are different challenges and stages and intentions of how you should implement AI in your business. If you're at the 6-figure mark, you're ultimately at the foundation or the solo entrepreneur area. Now, this is an exciting time to be, but ultimately that means it relies on you. And now, as you go from me, the solopreneur, to we, how do you radically transform into more of that we category? And what is that we defined as? Traditionally, without AI, you would go from me to we, and then we to IT being defined as systems. Now with AI, you can in a lot of ways consolidate that and change me to IT and bring some of those systems in place. So we're going to talk specifically about areas in AI with different agents that you could do in developing a strategy for content distribution across platforms, nurturing leads beyond just email. Because let's face it, not everyone responds to email, even though leading and nurturing is key. With that outbound strategy, it's again important to be omnipresent. But how do you be omnipresent as a solo entrepreneur, as well as someone who just has a small team and having the ability to be a small, mighty team? Specifically, what we're going to talk about in today's episode, especially as we create SOPs, and we're going to see how companies use digital presence ultimately can amplify their impact and revenue. We're not going to go into specifically when that is, because building a brand is a nuanced, very technical thing of do you do that at the solopreneur stage or do you do that down the road? It really just depends. In this episode, it's jam-packed specifically with insights for you to scale and improve your business as a 6-figure business owner. And I'm excited that Devin was able to come on today to talk to us specifically about some of these things that you can now implement today after listening to this episode. So here we go. And today I have Devin Dillard here, who is a marketing professional who helps integrate AI into your business. He's a Data 5 and has been doing marketing for over 13 years. Today, we're going to specifically talk about 6-figure business owners and on their path basically towards that first 7-figure mark in their business. Devin, welcome.
How you doing, man? What's up?
I'm doing great. We survived tornadoes, or at least tornado sirens last night here in Nashville. And I'm just alive and well.
Yeah.
So business is all about risk and risk mitigation. And I, mitigated some risk, and we're again alive and well.
Yeah.
One thing I found, with AI is that as a very analytical person myself, right? I always have these really big maybe ideas or things that I could create, right? So if we look at traction, right, you have the integrator score and visionary score. I'm more of an integrator than visionary, but I'm actually pretty close. So what that means is I basically just spin my wheels sometimes unless I'm aware of what I'm actually doing. And so AI can certainly be beneficial in terms of business, kind of plan creation, if you will, but you really need to test the market, right? So I just want to preference what we'll talk about today isn't about business creation, idea creation, market validation, things like that. Yes, do the research, have it help you be the aid, right? But specifically, we're going to talk about, systems and processes that you can implement in your business. I mean, where have you kind of seen the initial point of it being beneficial to a company? Is it number of people? Maybe there's 2 or 3, and then we're starting to automate stuff. Is it certain amount of revenue of hey, at $100,000, you have an established business, and then you're looking to, scale. Where have you really seen kind of some automations or AI really start to, I mean, you could always entertain it, right? But when do you actually press play on some of this stuff?
That's a great question, man, because I think a lot of business owners struggle with that question, and they teeter on this line of should I integrate, should I not, especially the 6-figure level, because they feel like they still have bandwidth to do it on their own, right? Mm-hmm. But they know that AI is the next thing. I think that's kind of where everybody's mind is at that point is I know AI is the thing I need to do, but when do I do it? When does it make sense for my business to do it? And what I like to tell people is this, is the moment that you think about hiring someone, think about take that thought, capture it, and start thinking about, okay, instead of hiring this person, what can I build to do this job? Because the reality is that majority of the things that you're trying to hire for at the 6-figure level can be automated or can be delegated to an AI agent, right?
Okay.
Because it's usually manual things that you're trying to get your time back on. right? So that's kind of the starting point is like, hey, the moment you start thinking like, oh, I need a VA for this, or I need to bring on a person for this thing, that's the time where you need to be like, okay, instead of bringing on a person and increasing your expenses drastically, how can you build something or have something built for you that can take that job over, but at a fraction of the cost?
Yeah, yeah, and I think that it's important delineation, right? The difference between aid and then delegation. So let's talk about aid first. Maybe you have a couple employees, whether they're a VA or something like that. Like what sort of aid things have you seen in terms of AI? I mean, certainly there's kind of research, blog post, repurpose sort of thing. But what kind of recommendations, if you will, for that person who has kind of that established business, maybe call it the 100 to 300 grand sort of thing. Like they're really just
Yeah.
looking to grow, and they're hitting some challenges because they're probably doing everything themselves, and they're realizing like they are their own ceiling essentially. And so
Mhm.
those systems and access could really be that sort of breakage point.
Yeah. So this is going to be determined by what type of business someone's running, right? I always say because most of the people I work with are people that use the internet for their business,
Okay.
right? That could be
Common software or like what?
no, like anybody who uses online internet to generate leads and to do business development, right?
Okay.
So they're
Okay.
using socials or they're using ads, they're using emails, they're doing something digitally to grow their business or manage their business,
Okay.
right? Because what I look at first is ROI producing activities, right? Is how can I either make them faster, aid, right? Bring on, and examples would be having custom GPTs created that take away the thinking processes that you have to accomplish certain tasks, right? So like content is a big piece that I've automated a ton of times already. Because for most people, they're not content creators. They're not social media marketers. It takes them a lot of energy and time to come up with those things, would come up with pieces of content or even ideas for content. So if you have a custom GPT that can come in and literally you just kind of vomit at it and say, hey, I want to talk about these three things, like give me some ideas or give me some content pieces for these things, right?
Uh-huh.
That's the first level. I call it the asker level, right?
Okay.
The person's asking the AI to help them do something faster, right? And that's one example. Is content is that you don't have time to come up with these ideas every day.
Yeah.
Then just get a list of them. Get AI to create 100 ideas for you. So
Mhm.
now every time you need something, you just pick from that list, right? One thing that I do is I build copywriters for people. So once I build their copywriter, they can use that. They can become an asker, right? And they can use that to drop ideas in topics, themes for it to write about. And it won't just come up with ideas, it will write the content for them, right? So that they can post it. That's a huge time saver, but it's also a moneymaker because if you don't write well or you're not a copywriter, then not only is it sounding like you, but it's sounding like the version of you that would be a good copywriter.
Sure.
Right. And that's the part that people love about what I do with that piece of my business is that like, man, I wish I could write like that. But like it's you, but it's just like with strategy behind it.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, that's just a couple of examples that I would
Okay.
say on the front side of the process is like what can I get help with to make some of these processes faster,
And
right?
is that mainly with GBT, or are you using like Gronk, or what? I
I
guess.
usually use either Claude AI for a
Okay.
lot of content stuff, and then anything else that's like idea generating or strategy or research. I
Mhm.
use OpenAI, use
Okay.
ChatGPT.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. The other thing that you and I have chatted a little bit about is image creation, right? Like YouTube clips, right? Having that and having kind of an unlimited photo shoot kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Any other things to kind of add around that of when or why or how someone would use a Kriya, I think it is, to create from like an image standpoint.
yeah. So a lot of people take that and they immediately go to social media, which is what I use it mostly
Mhm.
for.
Yeah.
And that's because it cuts down on two things in your business. A lot it costs a lot of money to go do a professional photo shoot, right?
Mhm.
I've done a few of them. I've hired videographers, I've hired professional photographers. It's thousands of dollars to
Mhm.
go do that, right? And get good ones. But the thing is that when you run out of using those pictures, guess what you got to go do? You got to go do it again. You got to do
Yeah.
it again. You got to do it again, right? So what I found with the AI branded photo shoots is that you remove that cost out of your business, which is over a year could have been five to $10,000 in
Mhm.
professional images, right? And you remove that cost, but you also extend your creativity of like what these images could look like, what kind of branding you can create with them, right? Because if you travel to the islands, well, guess what? All your pictures are going to be around palm trees and beaches.
Sure.
You're not at palm trees and beaches every day. So you can be more so agile with your content
Mhm.
pieces and your branding pieces when you use AI that way. All right.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I love about it. And then I use it for websites. It's really great for creating website images. So like your banners and then like your bios and things like that on your websites. It's great for that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, it's my team's had a lot of fun with it. There's a bunch or a couple YouTube thumbnails where it's like me just like kind of breaking the chains of sorts, and then on my chest it's like fear and then doubt. And just like I do not have those tattoos. I have an anchor tattoo for my mom, and it just I don't know. Sometimes they were having fun with it. It's like okay, hey, let's Paul doesn't need to be Superman. Like stop doing superhero stuff. It's like, well, but like maybe this one for this image, and it's like, yeah. So it meaning to say like the creation is like completely next level, that it would be things that you wouldn't otherwise think of, which is why it's such a beneficial aid. Now, in terms of like delegation, then like where does that come in the six-figure sort of place? Like what sort of roles or actions have you seen and really or maybe educated, but even just like implemented as someone's looking again to kind of break through their own ceiling?
Yeah. So when it comes to delegation, you start talking about like automations and agents on that front,
Mhm.
and usually that's going to be for somebody that is trying to get scale. Like they're trying to take that business from six to seven figures, right?
Mhm.
And they're trying to do it without scaling their expenses and scaling their time and effort into the business. And that's when you start looking at things like how do I distribute my content in multiple places, right? Without me having to go and manually do it or hire a VA to come in and do it for me, right?
Sure.
Um, and there's automations for that. And then if you take it a level deeper, it's like, how do I nurture leads, right? A lot of people use email for nurturing leads, right?
Mhm.
It could be great, but it can also be a headache if you have a large volume. Like if you're growing and you're at 50K, 100K a month, right? And you're getting up to that seven figure level.
Mhm.
Who's responding to all those emails when they come in,
Mhm.
right? When people are replying to that amazing nurture sequence that you created, who's getting back to those people at a timely fashion? Well, a lot of times those emails get dropped. A lot of times you get back to them a couple of days late and they've already found somebody else to talk to, right? They got what they need
Sure.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
And to circumvent that, a lot of people are like, oh, I got to hire somebody. I got to hire an email marketer, right? Or a assistant, an executive assistant. Well, what I did for myself is I built a email assistant that can read my emails for me, identify if it's a client or if it's a lead,
Mhm.
and respond accordingly, right? And anything that it can't respond to, I can actually get notified in a timely manner because I don't check my emails. If you're a millennial and you haven't spent a lot of time in corporate America, like I spent 7 years, it didn't
Mhm.
really get attached to me to like check my email very often because I was
Yeah.
most usually in social media roles. And so like I suck at checking emails. Bad. My old business partner, he's like 10 years older than me. And he used to be like, bro, I sent you an email. Like, bro, I don't check email, bro. Just text me. Just send me a text. And so like I had to figure out a solution for that because I do email marketing and I want to get back to people in a timely fashion. And
Sure.
so I built something like that to delegate that entire task to because I know I'm bad at it. And I know it
Mhm.
hurts my business because I'm bad at it. Right. So that's
Yeah.
one example of like something that you would want to delegate at that
Sure.
same level um, to something like an agent.
Yeah. I mean, so they're writing the email and sending it, or is it like drafting it and you approve it and send it?
At first, I did the draft, but then I got
Yeah.
comfortable with what its response is, testing it out, seeing what it's sending back. I'm pretty comfortable with it responding because it's only responding to clients or leads. And there's only
Okay.
a certain type of conversation that's going to happen in those areas, right? Like it's not responding to my business partners or any kind of referral sources and things like that, right? So yeah, I trust it basically because the
Okay.
thing is you wouldn't have if you hired an EA you wouldn't have that draft you 20 emails and you have to go check them all, right? You would trust them to write them
Yeah.
eventually
Sure.
and be like, just send them, right?
Yeah.
Because it kind of defeats the purpose if you don't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. What have you found is like, so I mean, there's a lot of things, out there in terms of AI, in terms of just doing it or education or things like that. Like, what is maybe like one step that you would recommend someone who's in the six figure, whether they're in the lower or upper level, that they should do to, I guess, educate themselves about AI? And then also, what is one thing that they should, implement? Is that, hiring someone like you, or do they need to kind of do things themselves to figure out what they truly need, and then maybe go to someone like yourself?
Yeah. I think that at the six figure level, and I remember like when I first got to that point, one thing that is really a six figure business owner is really bad at, most of them, is SOPs. They don't even
Mhm.
understand what the processes are that generate the business that they have, right? They're just doing it every day unconsciously, right? Or they have a team member that they've just showed how to do it once because they're doing
Mhm.
something simple and that team member got it and they're just doing it. But there's no SOPs in the business for the workflows that people are doing, right? Or that they're doing every day,
Mhm.
because to them it's just controlled chaos, right? So that is the first step, is you have to identify what your SOPs are. What are the tasks that are being done? How are they being done? Right. And that's why I don't really gear towards the newer business, because they may have workflows, but they don't know if those workflows actually work. Right. So like, you have to have some proven things that have generated your business before you automate it. Because one thing that me and my friends talk about in the AI industry is you can automate garbage, but you just keep
Yeah.
getting garbage,
Yeah.
right?
Sure. For sure.
So people they got to know what it is that they're doing. Once you
Yeah.
have SOPs, then you identify what are the things that are making me money but
Mhm.
are very manually intensive,
Mhm.
and how do I delegate or automate that?
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. There was a recent thing I saw, and I'm not going to be able to find it right now, but it was basically on the idea of what is actually growing and driving your business and creating like that sort of model and that sort of process, and not necessarily a process for process sakes, which I mean certainly makes sense. But like when I was in, product management and tech working with developers, like we had different processes, whether it be like the data or like requirements or things like that. And so we spent time like doing that. And ultimately it's just like, hey, does this make us money? Like, does this move actually the change? And so oftentimes I've seen like even in, my own companies and whatnot, it's like, oh yeah, let's like automate, sending out, social posts or things like that, which certainly can be an income driver, but it's also reverse engineering and asking the question of I've done this even just recently, like, is the content that I'm producing and where I'm sharing it and how I'm communicating it, is that bringing in leads that are then qualified and interested and they're, closing conversations? Or is it more they need education, information? Like where are they kind of at that level? And who are they, right? Difference between being, curious and closed, right? And
Yeah.
so it's then, reverse engineered of, yeah, sure, I can automate all this stuff, but if I don't have this kind of reflection of what, is actually being done and how that then supports this stuff, does it actually move, the ball down the field, not just create a bunch of noise? Because I found that specifically kind of the six figure level, it's just you're still maybe trying to figure it out, or you don't recognize that like you're causing noise, and it's not posting 57 times, right? It's
Yeah.
simply saying, hey, here's a testimonial of how someone was here and then they got here, and that ultimately allowed them to do this. Like that is like a sales conversion post as opposed to just a general like, piece of content. But I wouldn't have known that if I have not looked of like, if I automate this and I get 1,000 of these things, what would the results be, right? The idea of like, if I did 10,000 hours with this and basically with AI, shrunk that, what would the results be? Well, I'd have a big following. Amazing. You have a big following. Oh, well, then maybe I could upsell them. Well, you might have just had a big, community of individuals who are curious and interested, but they're not committed and they're not, closed, if you will, right? So that sometimes I've seen, issues for companies where they're going more towards that, or even like individuals. Hey, I'm gonna like start a personal brand. And it's like amazing. Like you going to the gym is very different than, hey, here's a result of what I had at the gym, or here's a result of what someone did at the gym, right? That conversion is, converting essentially. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big, big piece. Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's great. The idea of like ask level and automation level are, key aspects. If someone wants to, connect with you more and, understand more of your capabilities, like how can they reach you and connect?
Yeah. So you can reach me at Devin Dillard on Facebook, or you can go and check out some of what I'm doing at the digitaldadpreneur.ai. Actually, not the digitaldadpreneur.ai. No, the at the beginning.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes. Sweet. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on, talk about six figures and how to, grow and scale a company beyond your current capacity.
No, no problem, man. Thanks for having me.
You bet.